Welcome back to the X Podcast. I'm at the round table with Timothy the Button Moore. How are you?
Oh, let me push the button and wake up.
I was reminded, for all of our podcast listeners and viewers, I was reminded this week that I'm going to call you Pastor Tim.
This week? You mean last week?
Or last week, that you have a button. And it's honestly inspiring. You know, Iron Man has a button. You have a button.
Okay.
And you and I flew to St. Louis, got a rental car, went to Illinois for a men's conference. We watched some jousting and some grown men
Paintball duck hunt.
Pelted by paintballs in a duck hunt. It was very interesting. But really cool. Met some amazing people. But I just was reminded that you are the Energizer Bunny. And it's impressive. It's inspiring. It inspires me.
I have nothing to say.
And I confirmed this with your wife on Sunday, that you have a button. We don't know where it is.
I don't have a button.
Okay.
When I wake up, I wake up.
Yeah.
That's not true, because, it does take, sometimes I hit my alarm, I hit snooze like that, but when I make the decision to get up, then I get up.
It's impressive.
And you go.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's funny, because I had I've had a few people in my life recently be like, Russ, it's, try to encourage me. They're like, it's, because I think probably compared to some people, we both probably have a bit more of a driven personality.
Yeah.
So they were remarking on that in my life, and I just thought, if you could see Pastor Tim.
Okay.
Because, what was it? It was one morning, and I made the mistake of setting an alarm. And the moment it went off,
your alarm was set both days.
You grabbed the curtains, swept them back, and said, "We're going now to the gym."
That's not what
I said. Well, I know we said we're going to go this morning. Do you want to get coffee? Do you want to get breakfast? She said, "No, we're going now." I said, "Well, can I lay here and wake up for a minute?"
First of all, he is exaggerating greatly.
I am
That
not.
is not how I talk. I did not say we're going now.
Laura, please respond to YouTube.
That's not true. So I said, what did I say? I didn't say we're going now. Okay. You said, well, don't you first want to get coffee and eat breakfast? And I
where did my voice go?
Well, you were tired and you still hadn't got out of bed, and I'm not even sure if your eyes were open. And you were like, but don't we need to get coffee just to wake up? And I'm like, no, we're gonna go to the gym. We're gonna wake up at the gym.
Listen, I have a principle. The first hour of life should be dedicated to consciousness, coffee, and Jesus. The three C's: coffee, consciousness, and Christ. That's the first hour of the day.
I usually try to give the first 14 hours of my day to consciousness and water and Christ.
Yeah. What did you do last night? I'll skip to what I did.
What did I do last night? I don't know. You caught me off guard. Last night.
I'm not
a whole lot.
I'm gonna let you hear what I did last night.
Okay, what'd you do last night? That sounds beautiful. I love it. Where did you go? What concert? I was at
the Shot.
Okay.
Blink-182.
Oh, I forgot. You are such a old metalhead,
punk rock. Kid at heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blink-182.
Started at 7. They did not come on until 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so
that's kind of late for someone like you, your age, right?
Okay.
Isn't it?
Okay. You know what? Let's skip ahead to more important matters.
Hey, speaking of which, we got a big day coming up.
We do.
Yeah.
Sundays at the movies.
I know. You have a big day coming up soon.
I do. All right. So
September 22nd.
Oh, that. Yes, I do have a birthday
Correct?
Coming up.
9/22. Yes. Did I get it right?
9/22.
I remembered it. 9/22. I'm kind of impressed with myself that I just remembered that. September 22nd. Make sure everybody wish Russell Johnson.
That is Solomon Foundation.
Sorry, John Russell. I saw your name on your ticket, and it just threw me off a bit.
Yeah.
So please make sure you show some love to Russell as he celebrates.
30th.
Or another decade later. One of the two. That's a big one for you.
Yeah, I don't want to think about it.
I'm excited, man.
Yeah?
This is great. They say 40s are the new 20s.
Do they?
No.
Who is they?
Nobody says that.
Okay,
but we'll say, for your sake, 40s are the new 30s. How's that?
You know what?
I do. You can be young at 40.
I want to redefine what 40
I love it.
is.
Me too.
So
I'm going to do it too.
All right. Let's skip ahead to that, to something that will happen almost exactly a month after that.
Okay.
So we said we were gonna take a podcast
Mm-hmm.
to indulge an announcement and topic around an announcement, and so something we've talked around for a while, but not just come out and said it, is God willing, mid to late October, my second book will release.
Whoa, let's go. Book number 2.
Book number 2.
Mm.
And the title is
Yeah.
Confidence.
Confidence.
And the subtitle is Destroy Insecurity, Discover Freedom. And I'm so
Love
excited.
it. You're excited?
I'm so excited.
You're near the home stretch.
I'm near the home stretch. It's something. It finished it a few months ago. It's just been in edits, typeset, format.
Yeah.
All,
When
all
did
that
you
kind of
finish?
stuff.
When did you
I
finish
probably
it then?
finished the actual last word of the rough draft probably 4 or 5 months ago at least.
Yeah.
If not 6 months ago.
Wait. You gave it to me to proof. I feel like it was before Easter. I think it was in March.
Yeah,
it was in March. I think you finished.
It may
around
have been
end of
January, February.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was end of February, beginning of March that you finished. I think your goal was.
Yeah, this will be almost a complete 2-year process journey. So, for those that have been along our journey for a while or know either of us, 3 years ago, October of 21, I released my first book. For me, writing's been like a lifelong obsession. Been writing and reading since first grade. Just always been in my blood. But I just am now in the era where hopefully I'm finishing projects that I started in writing. So it was a 5-year journey of writing Hope for the Wilderness through all the pain to all the promise. And then after that, I just started several other projects. I probably wrote half of several books.
I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, I think I added up 30 to 40,000 words on a sequel to Hope for the Wilderness called Strength for the Promised Land.
That is a book. I could not write that much and not finish it.
I'm not. Well, one day in the right timing.
Okay.
One day in the right timing.
Yeah.
And then I probably wrote a third of a book about the Holy Spirit. Probably 15 to 20,000 words. I dabbled in a few chapters on a book around age, like
about turning 40.
No, called Growing Young, and which I think now I'm eventually going to release as kind of a book on serendipity and nostalgia and all that. But anyways, 2 summers ago in 2020, you had us kick off a series called Kings and Queens, and it was about kings and queens from the Old Testament, life lessons learned from them. I chose Saul. I did a message on the danger of insecurity and kind of on the nuance that pride and insecurity are 2 sides of one coin. Humility and confidence are 2 sides of another coin. And the next day in the office, I walked by Hunter. Shout out to Hunter, youth director. He just looked at me. He said, "That's your next book." And I don't want to blame it on God, but I just felt it.
We can blame it on Hunter.
Yeah, maybe blame it on Hunter.
Blame it on Hunter.
So if it just bombs, then Hunter, this is your fault.
Yeah.
So I kind of got to work shortly after and been working on it 2 years and so excited. I've told you, I'm excited for a lot of reasons, but I think the topic of confidence is it's really universal and really personal. Universal because I think unless you're just a complete, sociopath, you deal with self-image, you deal with self-doubts, you deal with self-consciousness. I personally, I don't know about you. I feel like you're always confident. I feel like, I don't know. I look at somebody like
confident.
You and I'm like, Bash Tim does not ever struggle with confidence. You just, you got energized.
We all have insecurities. I don't care who you.
Yeah.
If you'd say, I don't know if you say that's the other side, because you said pride and insecurity
are 2 sides of the
same coin. But you could also, so it's the antithesis of confidence and humility or whatever, which really makes it confidence and insecurity. They're kind of the opposite ends of the teeter-totter.
Yes.
And so I think there's not a single person out there that doesn't have some insecurity. Do you think that insecurity and confidence work on a scale? Is it a spectrum in your opinion? Like, I don't know if you've written in that regard. Like, do we fall between this scale of either, being more confident or being more insecure, or are they 2 things that can coexist at the same time? Like, how do you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of layers to that. I think number one, confidence is on a spectrum. I think I do think there's a lot of factors. I think DNA. I think there's some people that are born with an intrinsic amount of confidence. Like one of the things I talk about in the book is Pastor Steve, who's on our staff, he always talked about him and his dad, spitting image, look very much alike, same kind of personality, but the way that their journeys progressed in life were so different. Pastor Steve always tells this story about how they got back from a social event one night, and his dad looked at him and said, "You know the difference, the only difference in us, even though our personalities are so similar." He's like, "What?" And he's like, "You have confidence." And I think some people are born with an intrinsic amount of confidence. I don't know if that came from nature, nurture. People can debate that. But I do think that there's certain people that have a little bit more baked in the cake of their kind of DNA, so to speak, and their personality. But then I also think stuff from childhood can affect it. I also think there's a really interesting spectrum when it comes to the different areas of your life. I think there's some people that can be very confident in one area of their life and not confident in another area. What I'm getting at in the book is really more, in fact, I use this line, it's one thing to have insecurities. I just think that means you're human. It's another thing when insecurities have you. And so what I'm really talking about, not so much is, do you have areas of your life that you're a little self-conscious about? Or do you have areas of your life that you wish were a little different? I just think that makes you human. I'm more talking about, do you have an essence, like an internal compass that shrinks back and feels trapped by feelings of insecurity and lack of worth? And by, or do you have this inner kind of self-belief that drives you forward? Because, again, one of the reasons I'm so excited about this topic is I viscerally feel the effects of both confidence and insecurity.
Yeah.
Like, I think confidence, when I have felt confident, it gives me the fuel to take risks, to put myself out there. I mean, even in your gifts, when you're feeling confident and in the zone with your gifts, you thrive, you soar. I think you can feel the effects of confidence in your relationships. I mean, in your relationships, when you feel confident, you have more to give, you have more to offer. They tend to be healthier. But when you get trapped in kind of a funk of insecurity, it affects every area of your life. You shrink back from work. You don't put yourself out there and take risks. I actually think insecurity sabotages your relationships. Maybe worse than almost anything else. Because when you're insecure, you can't celebrate people. When you're insecure, you get in your head a lot. When you're insecure, you create narratives in your mind. When you're insecure, you get paranoid. When you're insecure, you try to impress or name drop. You have FOMO bad. Insecurity just robs your peace. It robs your joy, robs your strength. And, on a biblical standpoint, there's a verse, Hebrews 10:35 says this: "Don't throw away your confidence, for in it is great reward." And so I kind of kick off the book by saying there's a spiritual context to that verse, obviously. But the principle that confidence brings reward translates to every arena of your life. That the stats are in, and deep down we know it. Confident people just win.
Or are we sure it's not winning people are confident?
Hey, it could be.
Which one is it?
There's probably a cyclical effect.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure there is.
But even just on a surface level, I mean, they've done statistics. The confident person is more likely to get the job in the interview.
Yeah, you go into an interview. I mean, it's yours.
They've interviewed people of the opposite sex. The opposite, what they attract to, confidence.
So fake it till you make it.
Well,
is that the gist of the message?
No. So without giving it all away, basically the book is broken up into three main sections.
Okay.
Number one, it really goes a lot into the lives of Saul and David. And so in the first section, it goes into the life of Saul, really designed to destroy insecurity, escape the trap of insecurity. The first section shows the danger of insecurity in the life of Saul. And then talks about comparison, jealousy, and how we escape all that, the power of celebration, the power of calling. The second section is a little bit more of a psychological section that goes back to the garden and really deals deeper with your internal sense of identity.
Okay.
Because true confidence is not an act. True confidence is an essence that you develop from the inside out, not the outside in. And so the second section goes into identity, worth, true self-esteem.
Okay.
What does it look like to actually build a healthy sense of self, a healthy sense of identity? And then the third section is uber practical, and it's more along the lines of David, and it's more like, okay, once you build this internal sense, how do you not fake it till you make it, but how do you be it until you become it? Can I say it that way?
Be it until you become it. Be confident.
I mean, let's get spiritual for a moment. Scripture says that we are the that God is perfecting what has already been perfected, right? We so much of Scripture is becoming who you already are, right? Scripture declares us holy, chosen. So half of just walking out a life of faith is becoming who you already are. You've been given a new identity. You've been given a new nature. How do you actually walk in it? So better way to say it instead of fake it till you make it is how do you walk it out? How do you actualize these things into your life? How do you integrate? One way I say it is in the middle section is sometimes we won't get better until we believe better, because as a man thinks, so he is.
Yeah.
But the third section is that practical, gritty side we don't like to think about, which is also sometimes you won't feel better until you do better.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can look in the mirror and declare, Russ, you're disciplined every day. But if I don't start integrating disciplines, my self-esteem runway will run out.
All I can think of is picture is Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live. When he looks into the mirror, remember his little quote he would always say to himself? I can't remember what it is, but you're smart, you're this, you're that, and gosh darn it, people like you. You know Stuart Smalley?
No.
You don't remember that?
No.
That Saturday Night Live skit?
Oh, I haven't seen
Stuart
that.
Smalley? Yeah, he looks into a mirror and he's encouraging himself. He's building confidence.
I like
he's
it.
building confidence.
Yeah.
No, this is great. I do think that this is like one of those, we've talked about this, maybe it feels like a little bit more of a niche topic, but it has really broad appeal. Like I think all of us go through life and there are probably different seasons where we feel more confident than others. I think there's different arenas. Like you could feel really confident at work because you're killing at work.
Yeah.
But you just had a new baby and you're like, I have no idea what to do and how to be a dad or a mom.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there's so many different kind of arenas in life where where our confidence ebbs and flows, and I think our insecurity ebbs and flows. I do think there are some oftentimes in our lives there are some deep-seated insecurities. As somebody reads this, who is maybe I don't know, maybe it'll bring to the surface some of their insecurities. How do you see this book helping them process insecurities? Because I think some people, some of us, all of us have some, so let's not just say some people, but all of us have insecurities in different areas and probably to different levels. And sometimes it seems like insecurities, a lot of times I feel like they're born out of experiences that happen to us. I think, and there are certain ages, there's certain seasons of life when I think we're so susceptible. Someone says something, someone calls you something, someone says something about you. A teacher when you're young says you're dumb. An adult says something and you hold that. It's like becomes a label. And even if you don't think it about yourself, I think there's always sometimes this insecurity behind you that's like, I'm never going to be that smart.
Yep.
I'm never going to be that, successful in this area. And so how does your book help, or where does it fit with helping people wrestle with their insecurities?
Yeah. No, I love it. I think so. To kind of set the framework of it, I wanted to write a book. Here's why I'm so excited about it. I wanted to write a book that was holistic. Okay. I feel like I don't mean this in a negative way, as I'm sure there's great books out there that deal somewhat with confidence, but I feel like you have your Mark Manson self-help books, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Flip. You have I
don't think that's the title.
You got Tony Robbins, and I love Tony Robbins, and I like Mark Manson. And then I feel like I don't mean this negative, but I feel like you have so many Christian books that I feel like a lot of them are full of cliches, or basically just, hey, memorize Ephesians. And then I feel like there's a lot of deep psychology out there that you have to sort through the academia and the high language and sort through the craziness to find help. I was pretty obsessive in this process about wanting to create a truly holistic book guide. It's very memoirish, like my first one. It's very full of self-deprecating Russ stories and my many failures in this area. I'm definitely not writing it from the standpoint of expert, but as somebody
who said you were a bit. You passed confidence to cocky.
Oh, yeah.
Is there another level of confidence that's cocky? That's pride.
Yeah, I would say cocky people are insecure, not confident.
I do. I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's a good assessment.
So I say all that to say, and this may sound cliche, but the reason I'm so excited about this book is I've written the book I wish I always had, because I still struggle like crazy, like anybody else, with insecurity at times, but especially my high school, college, young adult years. I didn't realize the toll it took on me when I would have entire seasons just trapped in my head, just in my head. And I mean, even now, like there's seasons or I'll go on trips where I'm like, I lose moments because I'm in my head. I'm wasting my life in negative emotions instead of living to the full this brief life I have because I'm in my head. I just feel like the cost of insecurity is so much higher than we realize. And the power of freedom and joyful confidence is so much more important than we realize. So I say all that to say it's holistic. Therefore, I believe the book will speak to anybody, but I think it will speak to them differently depending on where they are in the journey.
Yeah.
So, for instance, yesterday I was on the phone with somebody, one of my friends that I'm trying to kind of light a fire under her to pursue her dreams. She's a mom, bunch of kids. And I know her story. I've walked with her and her family for years. And she asked me over the phone, she's like, what do you think it is? Why is it so hard for me to allow myself to put myself out there and to have self-care? And we have that kind of relationship. I was like, so I know you're asking me because you want my honest opinion. And I said, I think it's several things. I think one, the fact that I said, there's no guilt like mom guilt and Enneagram 2 guilt, and you're both.
Yeah.
I said, so you have a hard time caring for yourself, investing for yourself. I said, on top of that, I think all of us have these. I think there's things from childhood, wounding. I said, I think at the bottom of it is a deep sense of unworthiness. You think your kids are worthy, but you don't think you're worthy. And because you don't think you're worthy, you don't think you're worth giving yourself permission to pursue your dreams and care for yourself and give yourself. What I really hope this book does is I truly believe it's going to be a ticket, a permission slip for people to live a life they barely imagined because they never give themselves permission because of a lack of worth. And so, but I skipped through all that and I said, but for you, I said, knowing you, I said, you're not going to be able to think yourself out of this. While there may be counseling that needs to happen, there's processing with God and healing that needs to happen. And I'm speaking to myself here. Really, sometimes the only way to destroy overthinking is through action.
Yeah.
I said, for you, you have got to, on a daily basis, when you don't feel like it, attack with action and invest in yourself and choose to invest in yourself. So I say all that to say, I think, in the feedback I've gotten, is this book will hit differently depending on where people are in the journey.
Yeah.
Some people, they're going to need section 1 more than the other 2 because it's going to be a liberation from the prison of insecurity.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a filling of calling and all that. Some people, I do believe a lot of inner healing is going to happen through part 2. And then I think, honestly, some kick in the butt, life-changing transformation, practical application will happen through part 3. Now, I think all of them overlap.
Yeah.
There's practical things in all 3 sections. There's spiritual and hopefully psychological insights in all 3 sections. But, yeah, that's what I'd say.
No, that's good. I think one of the things that I really appreciated about part 3 when I read it was that it feels like I feel like you did a great job of taking a concept. I think I told you this, that is it's so elusive. It's like it's like, where do I get started? It's kind of like the whole thing. It's almost like telling somebody to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, okay, how do I do that? Well, you just got to think happy thoughts. And it's like, well, I tried that. That didn't work. I couldn't think, I don't have any. And I think confidence is one of those areas that's kind of hard to, it almost looks like from the outside. This is what we perceive in others, right? You either have it or you don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got confidence. I don't.
Right.
And that's not true. And I do think that sometimes we give off, sometimes we'll give off confidence, but really it's a false confidence that's hiding our insecurity.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we look at some people and we could look at their confidence and maybe it is just confidence and we'll say it's cocky because of our insecurity. I mean, there's so many layers to this, right? But one of the things that I love is that I feel like you got, and again, this is where I know some of the feedback that was given, and I didn't mind it, but I think some of the feedback that you received, if I recall, when you had some peer review and other stuff, was this is kind of direct.
Yes,
this is a little in your face.
Season 3,
part 3. It's a little in your face, but I also love that you kind of I don't know. I'd say boiled it down to some really practical things that you can do. It's almost like you said. It's not faking it, but it's putting the action out there, knowing that maybe the spirit of the confidence or the attitude or whatever will follow the action.
Yeah.
Would you say yes?
Yeah.
Like, because some of that, it was almost kind of, I don't want to give away any of it.
Yeah. No, but it's true because I think like
it's some of it's. Can I just say this one? It's kind of like, hey, maybe deodorant. Didn't you have a section in there? Didn't you have something in there that was like, so it was just kind of like that, and it's like kind of like, hey, that's kind of offensive, but then it's kind of like, no, it's that whole. Sometimes you just tell somebody like, hey, use deodorant.
Yeah.
Again, I don't. Am I misapplying?
I
You did. I think
it.
you mentioned it. It's a small little part, but it was just kind of like, hey, it's that practical thing of it's the chicken or the egg, like which comes first, and I think that is the challenge with confidence, right?
Yep.
It's like if I have enough wins, if I stack enough wins together, then I'll be confident.
Yep.
But I think sometimes we don't have the confidence to even put ourselves out there to stack the wins.
Yes.
So some of this is probably more of, hey, in these areas, let's get real practical. What does it look like for you to take action and do this? This is simple. You can do this. And by doing that, you can be building confidence in other areas that you didn't realize. Am I saying that correctly?
It's so true. Yeah, no, it's great. I think one of the prefaces I gave in the preface is that depending on how you're wired, you're going to find some parts too spiritual, or you're going to find some parts too practical, or you're going to find some parts too psychological. And depending on how you're wired, and part 3 goes deep into the practical and the things that I think we tend to under spiritualize. Yeah, one of the things you talked about, stacking wins. I mentioned this, but I heard a quote 10 years ago, actually from a pastor in Atlanta, Rob Capel from Grace Midtown. He said that confident moments lead to confident lives. And it's so simple, but it's the power of momentum.
Yeah.
We can momentum, I think, in so many words, Albert Einstein says it's the most powerful thing in the universe. Compound interest. And there's compound interest in our actions of confidence. And it can be as simple as, when I get down on myself or I'm feeling low or I've had a crappy day or I'm feeling insecure, I can feel it. You can feel it when you walk for me, I walk into a coffee shop and I'm just kind of looking down, I'll have coffee, and I'm not engaging people. And I'm not looking them in the eye, and I'm not smiling, and I'm not bringing the full force of my voice. And it's fine. You don't have to be on.
Right.
But this is where I think it's the difference between faking and action. Is when I choose, even when I feel like shrinking back. In that, Hebrews 10, there's a line. It actually talks about 3 different levels of confidence in Hebrews 10. I don't go into this in the book, but at the beginning, it talks about the confidence to draw near to God with boldness. In the middle, it talks about a confidence to persevere, even to the loss of your possessions. At the end of the book in the chapter 10 of Hebrews, it talks about a confidence to progress. And there's this line that says, God takes no pleasure in the soul who shrinks back. And I think a lack of confidence, even in the practical things, causes you to shrink back, to walk with your head down.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is there's compound interest when you choose to lean forward and fully engage life, even when you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I knew you would love part 3. One of the things I talk about is this whole line, and I probably repeat it ad nauseum, that faithful isn't fake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just think I love the emphasis of authenticity in our cultural moment. I think the danger of misusing that, misapplying that, is we take that to mean that we have to feel something in order to do it, or it's fake.
Yeah.
So, again, yes, you can, in a faith context, yes, there is a danger in worship of lifting your hands for bad motives. And, Isaiah says, these people honor with me with their lips, but their heart's far from me. But if we're not careful, what we can come to the conclusion of is I'm never going to give God a sacrifice of praise. That I have to love the song and feel goosebumps in order to lift my hands. Instead of saying, no, I'm going to put the action first and the feeling may follow. The feeling's secondary. It is not fake to get up and read scripture even if I don't feel like it. It's not fake to love the people around you and choose to love them and serve them even if you don't feel like it. And so that's
I love that.
Yeah.
I think you also said your book deals with kind of this almost it's the overlap of, because it really is, of the practical, the spiritual, the psychological, all the different aspects. I think one of the things that you and I both really value this in our writing, depending on maybe a message or series preaching, But when we do dabble, because we do, I think to speak to something completely, you have to touch on areas that there are disciplines of professionalism, and we're not there. It's like there's psychological disciplines, there's counseling disciplines, there's doctors, there's research disciplines that that isn't our specialty or discipline. However, a lot of these topics that we have tried to write about or address, or things even from a preaching standpoint, this has been my case, is that all of these things are so interlaced with each other. Like, you can't tell where, is this emotional problem? Is this a psychological thing? Is this a physiological thing? When you're talking about dealing with depression and anxiety and all these things, there's so much overlap that I think sometimes it can be hard for us, you as an author in this case, to be confident to write about or address a subject matter when it goes into an area of discipline that is not your expertise necessarily, right?
Yep.
And so I think one of the things I'm trying to say that you did, which I appreciate, and I think we try to do this, is that we rely on professionals when we dabble into areas that maybe are outside of our discipline. Some people would say theology is your discipline. It is and it isn't. Pastoring is your discipline. Okay, yes, it is. But there is so much in what we do that interfaces with humanity. There's so many situations where we're thrust into where we have to do some counseling. We have to deal with psychological issues that people are addressing. We have to deal with all these things that we have some exposure. I guess we do have exposure, do have experience with. But I do know that you, and maybe you could speak to it, you did really lend your manuscript to some professionals to review, didn't you?
So several things I did, because like you said, it's one of those things where my confidence, so to speak, in writing this is, number one, just to reiterate, I hope to never come across, but part 3 is a little bit more authoritative.
Yeah.
But throughout the book, I really try to make it clear I'm hacking through the same jungle as everybody else. This is not from a place of having to arrived. So I'm writing, if anything, from the authority of vulnerability, of like, here's both my defeats and victories in this area. Here's what I've learned.
Yeah.
But also, there is a I don't know, a confidence you come that me and you both, I mean, you've for 5 decades more than me, but for a few decades now, my obsession has been walking with people and helping people and studying scripture and psychology and philosophy and all these things. But because of the nature of confidence and how so much of confidence, like you mentioned, can feel like such an ethereal thing, and sometimes it can feel like it defers to personality types, all these kind of things. One of the things I try to do almost ad nauseum, to maybe a detriment, is I had twice as many eyes on this book as my first book. So number one, since I'm a male, I had twice as many females review this book as males. I had 7 different females review this. And every person I had review this, I invited brutal feedback. Be brutal.
Yeah.
I had different ages. I had different personality types. Me and you were both 3s and we're very driven. And I know that can so I had different people on the Enneagram scale. I had people older, I had people younger. But then, I also had 3 different clinical psychologists, therapists, counselors review it. I had a clinical licensed counselor supervisor from here in Ohio. I had a professional doctorate psychologist, pastor, author in California. And I had a clinical licensed therapist and counselor in Georgia. All review it.
Yeah.
And so I really try to put it through the ringer to ensure that what is coming through is the most helpful possible. And then on top of that, just from an editing standpoint, you know me, this is words to me are art. And so I've tried to take it through a brutal process to where it's also one of the most for me rewarding compliments I got from one of the people is they said, reading your book, it felt like I wasn't just reading words, but I was looking at art. And for me, on a personal level, that's so meaningful to me. I love the idea.
I remember saying that to you.
You did. That's something you would never say to me. But
for me, writing is science. For you, writing is art.
Yeah, but I try to write with different people in mind. Like you, I had enough historical anecdotes that I literally had people like you in mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's gonna, and stats and stuff. But on a personal level, I think the poetry of Christian literature should be reclaimed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that beautiful truths should be unwrapped in beautiful ways.
Mm-hmm.
And not just read like geometry
Mm-hmm.
or I try to destroy cliches and stale writing. I want it to be provocative and inspiring.
Yep.
And so,
well, I think you accomplish those things. I do think it's both of those things. You do get all of Russ in this book. It reminds me, if anybody's read your first book, Hope for the Wilderness, it does have the same flow and feel. I would say you wrote with the same flow and feel, which I think is always, it is interesting because I think as new authors, you're trying to find your voice. I'm like, I've only written one book. You've written one now, your second book about to come out. Whenever somebody starts on any different platform of communication, there's always this thought about finding your voice. I do think that now that you are just a little bit older than I am, is your birthday.
Okay.
And now that you're 40, I feel like you're finding I feel like you're finding your voice finally.
Okay.
But I do think that we have, the advantage I have for finding my voice with writing is preaching for 20 years, over 20 years. And so it's another form of communication. So I feel like because of, we both have been in ministry for a long time, preached a lot, that it does help because you kind of find your voice in speaking. And what I know I've tried to do, and I know I feel like you've done, but it's just translate that same type of voice onto paper.
Yeah.
So I think we've had people have said, I think readers like, okay, this is you. And I think that's a compliment. I think for, I don't want to try to write like anybody else.
Yes.
I'm not trying to mimic anybody else. There's certain styles that you like when you come across things because it speaks to you. It's the kind of style that you most identify with and like.
Yeah.
And I think some of that we adopt into probably the way we write. But I think your style is unique. I think it's you. I feel like it keeps that same, fun. I think you used the word provocative type of flow to it. So I think that's awesome. I think people, if they enjoyed your first book, they're going to enjoy this one. I think it's funny because the last one, your subject matter, I feel like this is deep in itself, but I feel like the other one maybe felt deeper.
Yeah.
Does that sound, it's just because of hope and despair.
Maybe a little bit heavier.
Heavier. That's probably maybe what it is. Because I do think this goes very deep. This deals with, that's probably a better way to say it, because I do think this deals with one of the deepest holes in almost all humans, which is insecurity. And it is probably one of the wells that we operate out of that causes so much damage in our lives.
Yeah.
Is insecurity can derail relationships faster than anything else. If you're always insecure, then everything that they say you're taking wrong. You're thinking they mean one thing. They don't really love you. You got all these voices in your head. A lot of that stems from insecurity.
Yeah.
It's and it's like, what is the breeding ground for security in our lives? And I think, when we address the things that are insecure, I do think that you have to kind of, as you go on this journey in this book, and hopefully if you're watching this, you're listening, hopefully you'll get a copy of it when it comes out, at least one, if not one to share. If you know somebody that it would encourage. It does kind of feel like one of those titles that's like, hey, I got you this book. Wait, what are you trying to say? No, I'm not trying to say. I'm just saying it was a great book. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
For confidence. Yeah. But I do think it's something everybody could use to grow in.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone can use stuff, to deal with insecurities. It's not, none of us are so confident that we don't have insecurities that this can't address.
Yeah. It's, as I go back and constantly, as I'm going back and editing and reading, I'm like, ooh, I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed that. It's weird, but I'm like, oh, I needed that reminder. I don't think any of us will ever graduate out of it. And again, like you said, the kind of the deep part of it, some of the deep sections, especially when it's talking about the Garden of Eden, is there's a reason that humanity in general feels insecure. I believe it goes back to an anthropological, theological thing from the garden, that we swam, so to speak, in God's presence. We're surrounded by his love, never knew insecurity. And then we became naked and unashamed. And there's been a kind of a scrambling in the human spirit ever since, to feel okay and to be validated by places that don't really satisfy. And we all have a deep, I think, even no matter how great of our family was, I think because it's in the bones of humanity, all of us have a deep sense of abandonment, actually. And that leads to being thirsty.
Yeah.
You know, in our spirits. And a lot of us get that from affirmation.
Yeah.
You know? So when if enough people can clap for me, if enough people can tell me I did a good job, I still feel that.
Yeah.
Like, I still wrestle with that at times of like, I have to, you know, after somebody gives me a bunch of compliments or I preach, like, be so careful. Enough people take, okay, I have to make sure I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah.
But I don't get my source from that.
Right.
And we all hack through that. And so, but to your point, I think, you know, for better or worse, one of the compliments that I do love, because this is my goal, is people will tell me, hey, when I read your words, it feels like we're just sitting down for coffee.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of an interesting mix with what I'm trying to do in this book, because it's kind of a how-to guide, but it's also memoirish. You know?
Yeah.
Because to me, the best books are when I feel like I'm sitting down for coffee with someone. And they're helping me, and I feel like they're being human.
Yeah.
You know? You've already kind of mentioned this with part 3, but put you on the spot. You were one of the peer review feedback team. Always have amazing insights theologically and scripturally and just approach and communication and all that. But yeah, I mean, what for you stood out, or you found interesting or nuanced, or even made you think outside the book? What do people need to hear that would help them in this area?
I think I love the practical nature. Like I said, I think one of the things that I thought you did so well, that I feel like when you pick a subject like confidence, it's one of those ones that's really hard to translate to someone, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I want to help give you confidence. And it's like, that's tough to do, you know? Because I think we all kind of blaze our own course. We all have different experiences, you know? I think, as you say, momentum. It's like when somebody's had, let's just say, a pretty strong, let's just pick a field like career, where it's like, you know, they've had success after success. And there's a lot of people who have had that kind of experience, right? You've gone from one company and went through the ranks and kind of got reached apart, and then somebody else wanted you and you went to them and you went to the next level financially, and, you know, you become really successful, that you build a confidence in that area.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that's so helpful about this book, and especially the last half, is really just the real practical, tangible ways that you kind of challenge people to take a step toward building confidence. I think you did that so well. I told you that when I read it. I was like, that's a really hard thing to, you know, it's like, let me tell you how to love. How do you love somebody? You know, let me tell you how to do it. It's like, well, you know, where do I begin? You know, everybody's different. You know, and so I feel like you took a subject matter that is kind of, even, here's the one thing I like that you did. A couple things that I really appreciated. These are the things, one of them was one you were worried about. You were worried, if I recall, tell me if I get this wrong, but you were worried that for some sections that people were going to maybe think it wasn't spiritual enough.
Yes.
If I recall, I remember you saying that. And my response was, who cares? Like, I feel like this is where we sometimes, I feel like this is where we limit. I want to say we limit ourselves. We limit, you know, in our spiritual family and context that we have, and just being around the church, there's this idea that there's a spiritual answer for every problem.
Right.
And I think sometimes there's maybe even a simpler answer for a problem. You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes it's kind of one of those things we don't really subscribe to. The devil's out to get me all the time.
Mhm.
And there's a demon under every rock, as you like to say. You know what I mean? We don't always subscribe to that.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's okay. And I think you were really a little messing with it. Like, should I put this in? Do I need it? I'm like, I don't think you need that. I feel like what you wrote is strong enough to just challenge somebody to go do something, and it makes a ton of sense. So I think I appreciated the fact that, because I think one of the things that can happen sometimes in the church world when you have people who are in ministry who write is that it becomes easy to just, well, I'm just going to regurgitate the Bible and give it to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, that is kind of what we do with preaching, but we also infuse our own thoughts. I mean, you do use your own faculties, and you do see throughout Scripture that God actually picks people and uses them and their gift and their lack and their insecurity, Moses, and their, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And will operate through them and gives them some autonomy to, you know, and I think that's the way God's chosen to use. And I think that's the same thing with writing, you know? And so I think sometimes we feel boxed in. And I like that you kind of, at least for yourself, you kind of were a little bit nervous about that. But I'm like, no, I mean, there was plenty. You had plenty in the first and the second parts.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think you need to.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to back up every single thing you're saying.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is true.
Yeah. One of the toughest things for me in writing in general is avoiding the temptation to over preface everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in my mind, I always hear the arguments.
Yeah.
Which can be a good thing.
It is.
But I have to, that's one of the things that's really hard for me to discipline myself to do.
Yeah. And it's hard because you never want to come across as, I've got to figure it out. You don't, so I'm telling you the way it should be, and this is what you do. And so I think what's easier for us to do sometimes in writing and other things is just to lean on the authority of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And we do use that.
Right.
But I think what makes books and writing a little bit different, unique, where we can, is that we're writing from something we've learned.
Yeah.
We're writing from an experience we've gone through. We're writing from something that, you know, and I like what you said earlier. I think that was so good. The authority that you're leaning on is vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a strong enough authority to lean on. Mm-hmm. You know, this was my experience. This is in this area of my life. Here's where I've done well. And then you're also vulnerable to go, here's where I still struggle with insecurities.
Yeah.
And so I love that part. I love the transparency. I think you do such a good job of trying to not make it look like I am the expert. And I think in a subject matter like this, that's tough. You know, at times I'm trying to help somebody get confident.
Right.
But you could say at times maybe I don't feel confident.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, times there's.
Yeah.
I will avoid bringing up do you remember? No.
What?
I want to leave that for you to ever bring up.
Oh, wait, chapter 1?
No. Do you remember when you were working on the book and you ran into somebody at a store? Should I not bring that up? That's probably not good to bring up. Is that not a story that you'd want to bring up?
I don't know. Do you think we should?
I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't have
teased
to.
It.
You don't mention it in the book because this was later.
Yeah, about what was I don't. Yeah, I don't mention the book. Okay, you know what?
Do you want to tell the story? I thought it was hilarious. I don't think it's a bad story. I don't think it reflects poorly on you.
Okay, so 4 or 5 months ago, I'm going to North Star to work on book edits, and I'm on an arena call, this leadership investment thing that I do, and I have my AirPods in. I'm one of those people that night, but it's the cafe I usually go to in Easton. I got my AirPods in, noise cancellation, and while I'm looking over the menu, which I never do, I see a attractive girl beside me, but I'm just focused on my meeting. I'm looking at the menu, and then I don't realize because I have noise cancellation and that she's saying something to me. So I take my AirPods out, and she's just chatting it up.
She's hitting on you.
I just never. Maybe it's my lack of confidence. I just never assumed that.
This is the irony of the story. That's why we're telling it, right?
Yeah, I never want to be that person. I just always assume someone's being nice.
Yeah.
So I did not assume she was hitting on me. I was just like, oh, so chatted up, get her name. I go to order, kind of an awkward moment. They're like, oh, are you two together? It's like, oh, no, this is my new friend. I said her name. And then I go over, and she had told me.
In other words, I'm not buying. We just met.
Right. And the humorous part of it too is she had told me in our few moments chatting it up that she was vegan. I guess I got so flustered that I accidentally ordered the vegan burger.
Oh my
So
God.
so I sit down. One of the managers there who knows me really well comes over and he goes, "Oh, see, you got the vegan burger tonight." He brings it over to me. I was like, "No, I didn't." He's like, "Yeah, you ordered the vegan burger." I said, "Dang it." I was like, "I didn't know." And then he goes, "Hey, by the way, do you know that girl over there?" I said, "No, I don't. I mean, we just met." And he goes, "Oh, I was just curious because." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, when I went over there, I said, 'Hey, do you know Russ?' And she said, 'No, but I thought he was going to invite me for dinner, but he didn't.'" And then I was like, "Oh." And so then I was like, "Well, dadgummit, I'm writing a book on freaking confidence. I guess I should make myself go over and say hi." So I go over. This is the juicy stuff that our podcast listeners get.
This is the best part. You're going to only get this on the podcast.
So I walk over and I was like, you know what? Something funny just happened. I'll use this to spark a conversation.
Yeah.
Well, this is how smooth I am. Mistake number one, I came up from behind and said, "Hey," and I scared her to death. She jumps, yells, and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I said, "I just thought I would tell you I ordered the vegan burger by accident." She just stared at me and goes, "Okay." I said, "So I just thought you'd get a kick out of that because I guess you planted the seed." And she just kept staring at me, and I said, "All right, so I'm going to go sit back down." So I went and sat back down.
I would have paid money to have watched that transaction.
So I'm like, I need to crawl under the table. So anyways, 10 minutes pass, she comes back over and sits down. And she's like, "Okay, you said something weird, like you intrigued me."
Yeah.
And then we had, a great conversation, talked for 20, 30 minutes. And then she asked me what I was working on. This is the part you love.
I do.
And I told her a book on confidence, and she started asking me some very invasive questions about confidence and like, well, what do you think lack of confidence has cost you in your life before, and blah blah blah, and all these kind of things. And then the part probably the reason you want me to tell this is she finally looks at me and goes, "So can I just be blunt?" I said, "Sure." She said, she goes, "Why is the guy who's writing a book on confidence not just confident enough to ask me for dinner earlier?" And I said, one thing is obvious. You should be writing this book instead of me because you are obviously way more confident than I am. So that to say,
yes,
I am not writing this book from a place of having arrived. But
do you know what her name is? Because we should ask her if she's written any books on confidence. Apparently she is.
Yeah.
She sounds very confident in that area.
Yeah, very confident.
Well, what I think is true is that some people, and I think maybe you'd agree with this, you can be really confident in one area.
Yeah.
And massively insecure in a different.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? You could be really secure in your dating ability and really insecure in your administrative ability or in your, whatever, cleaning ability or, whatever. I mean, just so I just, I don't know. I love that story.
Yeah. We're more complex than we realize.
Yes, we are. And
so
anyways, so I love that story. That's not in the book, but I love that story. And other than that, I think I really love the first chapter is probably one of my favorites. I think I told you that.
Oh, there's some secrets.
There's a juicy secret.
Just like the first one.
Right. Yeah. You save stuff that will shock us all for your books. And I appreciate that. So if you want to be massively shocked by a secret you had no idea about Russell, you need to get his book when it comes out.
Yeah.
That's my plug for it. You need to get it. Just, if anything, to be shocked.
Yeah.
And to enjoy the reading. And I think it will help grow your confidence.
And speaking of confidence, I'm going to go ahead and put this out there.
Yeah.
Here's an area I'm not typically confident in.
Yeah.
Is selling or promoting anything I do.
Yeah.
I love writing.
Mm-hmm.
I hate selling.
Yeah.
And so I've been on a psychological journey the last few years on different people in my life. Kevin, who was on the podcast, trying to shake me and say, I can quote him, say, "Russ, so much, of what you've shared has helped me, and you need to get over yourself, so that you can help people." And that's not a pat on my back. I think every person has something God's put in them that the world needs. And so I've been trying to get better at giving myself permission that if I think God's put something in me, as Kevin would say, it's selfish to hoard that and not get it out. So with that said, I'm just going to unashamedly, guiltlessly invite anybody and everybody that feels a part of this podcast, part of our lives, that feels like any of what we've done has been helpful, impactful. I'm just going to guiltlessly ask you to rally around this book and to rally around the message of this book when it comes out. To not just buy it, one copy, but if it's in your budget, buy several copies, give it to people. Unless you have just a massive platform, it is almost a miracle for a book to break through and break out.
Sure.
Without just a radical buy-in and a radical commitment. And so I'm going to get over myself and just ask that if you're like me and you feel the visceral negative impact of insecurity, but you also know how much better life is and the world can be when we walk in humble, joyful confidence. Then help me get the word out. Rally around the message of this book when it comes out. Should be, God willing,
what's the potential?
Mid to late October.
Mid to late October.
The ideal date is October 22nd.
Okay.
So I'll be sharing more about that. And if you want to, be a part, I'll be doing a launch team soon. If you want to be a part, you can shoot me a DM, message, text, whatever. But I really am excited. I think for me, the content of this topic has affected every day of my life. And there's just something wonderful when you don't feel strapped down by getting in your own way and being trapped in your own head. And I've lost, if I were to quantify it, I feel like there are months or even years total of my life I have lost being around people I love and having God opportunities in front of me because I can't get over how I view myself. Because I can't destroy feelings of unworthiness, because I can't break the hold of shame or stupid petty insecurities or just getting in my own mind. And I can say, even according to God's word, that you're not to throw away your confidence. But over and over, he says, don't be afraid, but be confident. Be strong. And there's a strength that comes in life if you can step into confidence.
I love it. So confidence. Destroying insecurity. Discover freedom by Russ Moore. Book number 2 comes out late October, mid to late October. So we're excited. He's going to be able to share about it with our church and encourage our community with it. And so I guess we just wrap this up and say congratulations. I know you're not through the finish line yet. I know, but you did write it. That's the hard part. Well, maybe editing, releasing. That's a whole new one. That's a new one, and you're tackling that, at least doing it from a different perspective this time than you were on your last book. So you're walking through a little bit of a different process and trying to do that. But coming soon, confidence. I'm excited. I'm proud of you. It's an accomplishment for someone who's trying to work on a book right now. It is.
We can talk about that.
Nope. It is tough sledding.
And thank you. By the way, one of the things you can't avoid in life is how much people in your life impact you. Now, the goal is to build an internal compass of confidence that isn't, relying on other people. But the truth is, the family we grow up in, the amount of, and so I just want to say thank you for creating a base of confidence. Thank you you're one of the most encouraging, believe in you kind of people. You are extremely gracious and generous with platform and your encouragement and your championing. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for you. I'm excited when it comes out. So make sure you get it when it comes out. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Until next week, you were going to say the name of your next?
Probably not.
Okay.
That's what it's called. Probably not.
It's called Probably
That'd be a great book title. Probably not.
That would be.
I like that. That's not it.
That's not it. Okay.
No, I'm working on it, though. Well, I got to get further along.
So no teasers yet?
No teasers yet.
Okay.
But coming soon.
All right.
Whatever that means.
All right.
But right now, we're focused on your book. So
Thanks for indulging us and being a part of the conversation. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, send it to us. Podcast@thex.church. You'll hear all that in the outro. But thank you for being a part of these conversations and these moments. And we hope you have the best week. We'll see you next time.
Hey guys, it's Russ. Thanks so much for listening. We really believe if we can get around tables instead of behind screens, if we can talk to each other instead of at each other, we can make the world better. To help us do that, here are a few things you can do to help. First, if you haven't yet, leave a review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe on YouTube. This helps more than you know. Also, if you have been impacted by the community out of which this podcast comes, that's X Church. Maybe you're local or you've been touched by the messages and impact across the country, even the world. I want to encourage you to support this work. A powerful life principle is to invest in the people and places that invest in you. And so I want to invite you to do that right now by going to thex.church/give. You can give a one-time small gift, a sacrificial gift, or even become a recurring partner. Together, let's keep elevating the conversation, thinking higher, loving deeper, and making the world better. Cheers.